Ralph Bennett's hand trembles as he contemplates the alien warrior's demand to go inside her. The human soldier, dwarfed by the towering Sakari female, finds himself in a situation that could alter the course of interstellar relations forever. Moments ago, Ralph had been on a routine patrol through the dense jungles of Nexus 7, a frontier planet teeming with danger and opportunity. Now he stands face to face with Petra, an 8-foot-tall Sakari warrior emerging from a steaming sulfur pool. Her iridescent skin, covered in bioluminescent markings, glistens in the filtered sunlight. The sight is both mesmerizing and terrifying. The Sakarian humans have been locked in a bitter war for control of resource-rich planets across the galaxy. This unexpected encounter presents a unique opportunity, one that could lead to peace or escalate the conflict beyond measure. Petra advances, her powerful form radiating strength and determination. Ralph's eyes dart to a small device embedded in her neck, a neural transmitter or tracking beacon, he suspects. His mind races, weighing the consequences of his next move. Comply with her demands and risk capture? Attempt to overpower her and almost certainly fail? The jungle around them stirs with activity, dangerous life forms drawn to the commotion. Ralph's suite computer silently alerts him to an incoming transmission from his commanding officer, adding another layer of complexity to his decision. Unbeknownst to both Ralph and Petra, a Sakari scouting party led by Petra's rival, Zorn, approaches their position. The clock is ticking, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Ralph's hand hovers near his weapon as he processes the situation. He realizes that Petra's demand isn't just about reproduction. It's driven by her species' unique cycle that requires genetic diversity from other sentient races. This knowledge could be invaluable to understanding the Sakari and potentially brokering peace. The fate of human expansion in the galaxy hinges on this moment. Ralph's decision will have far-reaching implications for both humanity and the Sakari. As he looks into Petra's alien eyes, he sees not just an enemy, but a being driven by biological imperatives he's only beginning to comprehend. Time seems to slow as Ralph considers his options. The humid air of Nexus 7 clings to his skin, and the pungent smell of sulfur fills his nostrils. In the distance, he hears the approaching Sakari scouting party, their movements barely distinguishable from the ambient sounds of the jungle. With a deep breath, Ralph makes his choice. The future of two species rests on what happens next in this steamy jungle clearing on a distant world. As he opens his mouth to speak, the galaxy holds its breath, waiting to see if this unexpected encounter will lead to understanding or ignite the fires of war anew. Ralph's decision crystallized in an instant. With a barely perceptible nod, he stepped towards Petra, his heart pounding against his ribcage. The Sakari warrior's posture softened slightly, her iridescent skin shimmering as she assessed the human's approach. In one fluid motion, Petra's powerful arms enveloped Ralph, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. The sudden shift in perspective disoriented him momentarily, but as his eyes locked with Petra's alien gaze, a new sensation washed over him. His suit's sensors blared warnings of unknown pheromones flooding the air around them. Ralph's breath quickened as he observed Petra more closely. Retractable claws extended from her fingertips, and a ridge of bioluminescent spines along her back pulsed with an otherworldly light. The pungent sulfur smell faded, replaced by an intoxicating alien scent that seemed to bypass his rational mind. Just as Petra began to initiate what Ralph assumed was the mating process, a low rumble reverberated through the jungle. The Sakari scouting party was closing in fast. Petra's head snapped towards the sound, her eyes narrowing. Without warning, her skin began to shift and ripple, taking on the mottled patterns of the surrounding foliage. "Don't move," Petra hissed, her voice a mixture of clicks and guttural sounds that Ralph's translator struggled to interpret. She pulled him into a hidden alcove formed by the massive, gnarled roots of an alien tree. The space was tight, forcing them into intimate proximity. Ralph's back pressed against the rough bark as Petra's form enveloped him. He could feel the heat radiating from her body, the steady thrum of what he assumed was her alien heartbeat. This close, he had a perfect view of the device embedded in her neck. Its metallic surface pulsed with a faint blue light, and Ralph's trained eye recognized it as a neural control implant. As they huddled in silence, Ralph's suit chirped softly, indicating an incoming transmission. Colonel Hawkins's voice crackled through his earpiece, barely audible. All personnel, evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate. Sakari activity has spiked across the sector. Ralph remained motionless, acutely aware that any response would give away their position. The sound of heavy footfalls grew closer, accompanied by guttural communications in the Sakari language. Zorn's scouting party was mere meters away. The jungle seemed to come alive around them. Phosphorescent insects swarmed in the air, creating a dazzling display of bioluminescence that threatened to reveal their hiding spot. Predatory vines, attracted by their body heat, began to slither towards the alcove. Petra's muscles tensed as she used her superior strength to hold back the encroaching vines. Ralph, drawing on his tactical training, focused on tracking the movements of Zorn's party. He counted at least 5 distinct voices, their heavy steps crushing the underbrush as they moved past. Artifact must be found, one voice growled in Sakari. The elders believe it holds the key to victory. Ralph's eyes widened at this revelation. An artifact of immense power, hidden on Nexus 7. This changed everything. The conflict wasn't just about resources. Something far more significant was at stake. As the scouting party moved on, Ralph became acutely aware of Petra's proximity. Her alien pheromones had intensified, clouding his judgment. He found himself drawn to the intricate patterns on her skin, the way her bioluminescent markings pulsed in rhythm with her breathing. Petra's gaze locked onto Ralph, her pupils dilating. The biological imperative that drove her seemed to intensify in the aftermath of danger. Her clawed hands moved with surprising gentleness, tracing the contours of Ralph's suit. The mating must proceed, Petra whispered, her translator struggling to convey the full meaning of her words. It is vital for our species, and perhaps for peace. Ralph's mind raced. This was far beyond his training, beyond anything he could have prepared for. The fate of 2 species hung in the balance, intertwined with his own actions in this moment. As Petra leaned in closer, her alien features both terrifying and mesmerizing, Ralph made a choice that would alter the course of the war. Unbeknownst to the entwined pair, a small, silent drone hovered just outside their alcove. Its camera focused on their hidden sanctuary, transmitting the unexpected encounter back to the Sakari command center. There, a high-ranking official leaned forward, eyes wide with surprise and interest at the footage unfolding before them. In the steamy jungle of Nexus 7, as predatory vines coiled around their shelter and the sounds of the Sakari scouting party faded into the distance, Ralph and Petra stood at the precipice of a moment that would reshape the galaxy. The war, the mysterious artifact, and the future of both their species converged in this hidden alcove, while the jungle pulsed with life around them. The jungle's humid air clung to Ralph's skin as he and Petra remained locked in their intimate embrace. His heart raced, not just from the proximity of the alien warrior, but from the weight of the moment, the fate of 2 species balanced on a knife's edge. Suddenly, a sharp crackle pierced the air. Ralph's suit emitted a series of rapid beeps, its systems going haywire. The neural control implant in Petra's neck pulsed with an eerie blue light, sending out waves of energy that interfered with Ralph's equipment. "Something's wrong," Ralph whispered, his eyes wide with alarm. Before he could react further, his suit's stealth mode failed spectacularly. The camouflage pattern flickered and died, leaving him exposed in the verdant undergrowth. Petra's alien features contorted in what Ralph interpreted as concern. "Your protection? It fails," she hissed, her translator struggling to keep up with her rapid clicks and growls. With no time to troubleshoot, Ralph made a split-second decision. His fingers flew over the suit's release mechanisms, and within moments he stood before Petra in nothing but his base layer. The cool air of the jungle hit his exposed skin, sending a shiver down his spine. A faint whirring sound caught Ralph's attention. His trained eyes spotted a small drone hovering just beyond their alcove, its camera focused intently on them. "We've been compromised," he said, tension evident in his voice. As if on cue, the sounds of approaching footsteps echoed through the jungle. Zorn's scouting party had picked up their trail. Petra's eyes darted between Ralph and the encroaching danger. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed rapidly, reflecting her internal struggle. In a fluid motion, she scooped Ralph into her arms, cradling him against her chest. "Hold tight," she commanded, her powerful legs coiling beneath her. With a burst of strength that left Ralph breathless, Petra launched them out of the alcove and into the dense foliage. They tore through the jungle at breakneck speed, Petra's natural camouflage shifting to match their surroundings. Ralph clung to her, feeling the ripple of alien muscles beneath her iridescent skin. The sounds of pursuit grew more distant, but the danger was not nearly finished. As they fled, Ralph noticed a change in Petra's bioluminescent patterns. The pulses took on a distinct rhythm, flashing in complex sequences. "You're signaling," he realized aloud. "Is it intentional?" Petra's pace slowed slightly as she processed his words. "No," she replied, her voice tinged with surprise. "Instinct, calling for help." Their flight had taken them deeper into uncharted territory. The vegetation grew denser, more primordial. Strange phosphorescent plants cast an otherworldly glow across their path. Without warning, they burst into a clearing. Before them stood an imposing structure, its architecture unlike anything Ralph had ever seen. Smooth, curved surfaces melded seamlessly with the surrounding jungle, as if the building had grown organically from the earth itself. "What is this place?" Ralph breathed, awe evident in his voice. Petra set him down gently, her alien eyes wide with wonder. "Unknown," she replied. "Not Sakari, not human." As they approached the entrance, Ralph's mind raced. The symbols etched into the structure's surface tickled at his memory. With a jolt, he connected the dots. "The artifact," he exclaimed. "This must be related to what Zorn's team mentioned." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the sound of approaching forces reached their ears. Not one, but two distinct groups converged on their location. "Inside," Petra urged, ushering Ralph through the entrance. The interior of the structure hummed with latent energy, dormant systems stirring to life at their presence. They found themselves in a vast chamber, its walls lined with technology beyond their comprehension. At the center stood a device that pulsed with an inner light, responding to their presence. Ralph approached cautiously, drawn by an inexplicable pull. As his hand hovered over the device's surface, it sprang to life. Holographic displays burst into existence, filling the air with swirling star maps and alien script. A wave of energy pulsed outward, washing over them both. Petra gasped, her hand flying to the implant in her neck. The device's blue light faded, going dormant. "The control," she said, her voice filled with a new clarity. "It's gone." Before Ralph could respond, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The ancient security systems, awakened by the artifact's activation, rumbled to life. Outside, the voices of Zorn's and another Sakari group grew louder. They were out of time. Ralph's eyes met Petra's, a silent understanding passing between them. The artifact's holographic display showed paths through space they'd never dreamed possible. This discovery could change everything, if they survived long enough to share it. As the chamber shook more violently, dust and debris raining down around them, Ralph and Petra faced a crucial decision. The artifact hummed before them, the key to untold power and knowledge. Beyond the chamber's walls, rival factions closed in, each with their own agenda for the future of human-Sakari relations. With the ground quaking beneath their feet and time running out, Ralph reached for the artifact, his fingers barely brushing its surface as the world around them descended into chaos. Chaos. The artifact pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its surface growing hot beneath Ralph's fingers. He instinctively pulled back, but not before a surge of power coursed through his body. Petra's eyes widened as she watched the scene unfold. "We must go," she hissed, her voice urgent. "Now!" Ralph nodded, his mind racing. With a swift motion, he scooped up the artifact, its weight surprisingly light in his hands. The moment it left its pedestal, the chamber shuddered violently, ancient stone grinding against stone. "This way," Petra called, gesturing towards a narrow passage that had opened up in the far wall. Ralph didn't hesitate, following her lead as they sprinted through the crumbling ruins. The air filled with dust and the deafening roar of collapsing structures. Ralph's bare skin was pelted with debris as they navigated the treacherous path. Petra's natural camouflage shifted rapidly, adapting to their changing surroundings. They burst out of the ruins just as a massive section caved in behind them. Gasping for breath, Ralph looked up to find themselves surrounded by two groups of Sicari warriors. Zorn's faction stood to their left, weapons drawn, while another group, presumably led by someone named Cora, blocked their right. But something was off. The Sicari warriors seemed disoriented, their movements uncoordinated. Ralph noticed the neural control implants in their necks flickering erratically. "The artifact," Petra whispered, her eyes darting between the two factions. "It's interfering with the implants." Seizing the moment of confusion, Petra sprang into action. Her powerful legs propelled her forward as she barreled into the nearest group of warriors. Ralph watched in awe as she effortlessly tossed aside Sicari twice her size, clearing a path through the chaos. "Ralph," she called, "activate the artifact." Without thinking, Ralph's fingers found a subtle indentation on the device's surface. It hummed to life, projecting a dazzling holographic map of the galaxy. The sudden display froze both Sicari factions in their tracks, their alien eyes wide with wonder and confusion. "Now!" Petra yelled, grabbing Ralph's arm and pulling him towards the dense jungle foliage. They plunged into the undergrowth, the artifact still active in Ralph's hands. Behind them, he could hear the frustrated roars of the Sicari warriors as they tried to give chase. But their pursuit was hampered by malfunctioning weapons and scrambled communications. As they ran, Ralph noticed a change coming over Petra. Her movements became less fluid, more erratic. She would stop suddenly, shaking her head as if trying to clear it. "Petra," Ralph panted as they paused in a small clearing. "Are you all right?" She turned to him, her alien features contorted in an expression he couldn't quite read. I'm not sure," she replied, her voice trembling. "My thoughts, they're jumbled. Memories I didn't know I had are surfacing." Ralph approached her cautiously, still acutely aware of her alien nature despite their shared ordeal. "It must be the neural implant," he suggested. "Without its influence." Petra nodded, her luminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "Yes, I'm remembering things. About my life before the war. About humans." She looked at Ralph, her gaze intense. "I had friends among your kind once. How could I forget that?" Before Ralph could respond, a distant explosion rocked the jungle. The Sicari were getting closer, their technology slowly adapting to the artifact's interference. "We need to keep moving," Ralph urged. "Is there anywhere safe we can go?" Petra's eyes lit up. "Yes, there's an outpost not far from here. It should be unmanned." They set off again, with Petra leading the way. As they traveled, Ralph couldn't help but notice how she kept glancing at him, her alien features softening each time their eyes met. The charged atmosphere between them had shifted, evolving into something more complex than mere biological imperative. After what felt like hours of navigating through the dense jungle, they finally reached the outpost. It was a low, angular structure that blended seamlessly with the surrounding vegetation. Petra quickly input a series of commands into a hidden panel, and a door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, they found a compact but well-equipped facility. Ralph's eyes immediately locked onto a sophisticated communication array in the center of the main room. "We can use this to contact our commands," he said, already moving toward the controls. As Ralph worked to establish a connection with Colonel Hawkins, Petra explored the outpost. She returned just as Ralph managed to get through to his commanding officer. "Colonel," Ralph said, his voice urgent, "we've discovered something that could change everything." He quickly explained their situation, detailing the artifact's capabilities and its effect on the Sicari neural implants. Colonel Hawkins listened skeptically until Ralph activated the artifact, allowing its signal to transmit through the communication channel. "My God," the colonel breathed. "This is unprecedented. Hold your position, Ralph. We'll assemble a team immediately." As Ralph ended the transmission, Petra approached the array. "Allow me," she said, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. Within moments, she had composed and sent a message to the moderate faction within the Sicari leadership. "I've explained about the artifact and its ability to disable the implants," she told Ralph. "I've urged them to consider a peaceful resolution." With nothing left to do but wait, Ralph and Petra found themselves drawn to a small medical bay within the outpost. Ralph's curiosity got the better of him, and with Petra's permission, he began to examine her unique physiology. "Your reproductive cycle," he murmured, studying a display of Petra's internal systems. "It's far more complex than we ever imagined. This could revolutionize our understanding of Sakari biology." Petra watched him work, her alien eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and something deeper, more primal. The charged atmosphere between them grew more intense with each passing moment. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Petra rushed to a monitoring station, her face grim. "It's Zorn!" she hissed. "They've found us!" The outpost's automated defenses sprang to life, but both Ralph and Petra knew they wouldn't hold for long against a determined Sakari assault. They exchanged a look, understanding passing between them without words. Whatever happened next, they were in this together. As the sound of Zorn's forces battering against the outpost's outer defenses grew louder, a new signal came through the communication array. Ralph's heart leapt as he recognized Colonel Hawkins's voice, accompanied by an unfamiliar Sakari tone. "Ralph, Petra," the colonel's voice crackled through the speakers. "We're en route with a joint human Sakari task force. Hold out as long as you can. We're coming for you." Hope surged through Ralph as he turned to Petra. Her alien features were set in grit, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with energy. They had a chance, however slim, to change the course of this war. But first they had to survive the coming storm. Assault. But first they had to survive the coming onslaught. Ralph gripped the artifact tightly, its smooth surface humming with latent energy. Petra's eyes darted between the outpost's entrance and the communication array, her muscles tense and ready for action. The sound of Zorn's forces grew louder, the pounding on the outer defenses reverberating through the structure. Suddenly, a series of explosions rocked the outpost. The automated defenses had engaged, buying them precious moments. Ralph and Petra exchanged a determined look, silently acknowledging their shared commitment. "We need to get to the extraction point," Ralph said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Petra nodded, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "There's a hidden exit. This way." She led Ralph through a narrow corridor, her alien physiology allowing her to navigate the dim passageway with ease. As they reached a concealed hatch, the sound of the outpost defenses failing echoed behind them. They emerged into the lush jungle, the vibrant flora a stark contrast to the destruction they'd left behind. Petra's skin shifted, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. She gestured for Ralph to follow, her movements fluid and purposeful. As they made their way through the dense vegetation, Ralph couldn't help but notice the change in Petra's demeanor. Without the neural implant controlling her actions, she moved with a newfound grace and confidence. Her decisions seemed more instinctual, less constrained by rigid programming. The jungle canopy suddenly opened up, revealing a small clearing. Colonel Hawkins stood at its center, surrounded by a mix of human and Sakari soldiers. Among them was a tall, regal-looking Sakari that Ralph assumed must be Lyra, the moderate faction leader. "Ralph! Petra!" Colonel Hawkins called out, relief evident in his voice. "Thank God you made it." As they approached, Ralph held out the artifact. The colonel took it gingerly, his eyes widening as he examined the alien device. "Remarkable," he muttered, turning it over in his hands. Lyra stepped forward, her attention fixed on Petra. "Your implant," she said, her voice a melodic hum. "It's deactivated." Petra nodded, her posture straightening. "The artifact's energy pulse disabled it. I remember things now. From before." Lyra's expression softened, a mix of concern and curiosity playing across her alien features. Before she could respond, a distant explosion shattered the moment of calm. "Zorn's forces," Colonel Hawkins growled. "We need to move, now." The joint task force sprang into action, forming a protective perimeter around Ralph, Petra, and the artifact. They began to move swiftly through the jungle, heading towards the extraction point. The sound of pursuit grew closer, punctuated by the crack of energy weapons and the rustle of vegetation. Ralph's heart pounded in his chest as adrenaline surged through his system. Beside him, Petra's skin rippled with patterns of warning and readiness. Suddenly, a barrage of weapons fire erupted from their left flank. The task force scattered, taking cover behind the massive tree trunks and dense undergrowth. In the chaos, Ralph found himself separated from the main group, with only Petra by his side. "This way!" she hissed, grabbing his arm and pulling him deeper into the jungle. They ran through a maze of bioluminescent plants, their eerie glow casting strange shadows. The sounds of battle faded behind them, replaced by the alien calls of jungle creatures. Ralph's bare skin was covered in a sheen of sweat, his muscles burning from the exertion. They burst into a small clearing, only to find themselves face to face with a group of Zorn soldiers. Ralph's military training kicked in as he dropped into a defensive stance. Beside him, Petra's body tensed, ready for combat. The first Sakari warrior charged, energy weapon raised. Ralph ducked under the attack, using the alien's momentum to throw him off balance. Petra moved with incredible speed, her fist connecting with another soldier's torso with a sickening crunch. As they fought, Ralph noticed the fluidity of Petra's movements. Without the neural implant controlling her actions, her fighting style was unpredictable and devastatingly effective. She seamlessly blended Sakari combat techniques with moves that seemed almost human in nature. Ralph found himself mesmerized by her graceful yet lethal dance. Their bodies brushed against each other as they fought back to back, sending jolts of electricity through his system. The lingering effects of Petra's pheromones intensified the sensations, making every touch feel charged with potential. A stray energy blast struck a nearby tree, releasing a cloud of glowing spores. The air filled with a shimmering mist, and Ralph's vision began to blur. He blinked rapidly, trying to clear his head, but the world around him started to shift and warp. Petra's form seemed to radiate with an otherworldly light, her bioluminescent markings forming intricate, mesmerizing patterns. Ralph watched in awe as she moved through the battle with impossible grace, her body leaving trails of light in its wake. The Sakari warriors were similarly affected, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. The battle descended into chaos as both sides struggled to distinguish reality from illusion. Ralph felt a hand grasp his arm, and he turned to see Petra, her alien eyes wide and filled with an intensity he'd never seen before. Without a word, she pulled him away from the disorienting melee and into the dense jungle. They stumbled through the undergrowth, the hallucinogenic effects of the spores slowly beginning to fade. Ralph's perception of time and space felt distorted, making it impossible to tell how far they'd traveled or in what direction. Finally, they emerged into a secluded grove. Large pod-like structures surrounded them, emitting a soft, pulsating light. Ralph leaned against one of the pods, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "What are these?" he asked, gesturing to the alien structures. Petra approached one of the pods, her hand hovering over its surface. "Healing pods," she replied, her voice filled with reverence. "Sacred to my people. They're used in rituals, and sometimes in mating ceremonies." Ralph's eyes met Petra's, and he felt a surge of heat course through his body. The residual effects of the spores, combined with the charged atmosphere between them, lowered his inhibitions. He took a step closer to her, drawn by an irresistible force. Petra's skin rippled with patterns of invitation and desire. She reached out, her alien fingers tracing the contours of Ralph's face. "I can show you," she whispered, her voice husky with need. As their bodies came together, the healing pods around them began to react. A fine mist enveloped them, accelerating their healing and heightening their senses. Ralph gasped as new sensations flooded his system, every touch magnified tenfold. Petra guided him through the unique aspects of Sakari physiology, their bodies moving together in a dance as old as time itself. The boundaries between their species seemed to blur, their differences becoming sources of fascination and pleasure rather than division. As their passionate encounter reached its peak, Ralph felt as though he was touching the stars themselves. The mist from the healing pods swirled around them, its bioluminescent glow merging with Petra's natural patterns to create a dazzling light show. In the aftermath, they lay entwined, their bodies still tingling from the intensity of the experience. The distant sounds of battle began to filter through the grove, a harsh reminder of the world beyond their intimate cocoon. Ralph and Petra exchanged a long look, both acutely aware that their relationship had fundamentally changed. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As they rose to rejoin the fray, neither of them noticed the subtle changes taking place within Petra's body. At a cellular level, something unprecedented was occurring, a hybridization that could reshape the future of human-Sakari relations in ways they could never have imagined. With one last glance at the healing pods, Ralph and Petra steeled themselves for what lay ahead. They stepped out of the grove, ready to face the consequences of their actions and the ongoing conflict that threatened both their peoples. The battle was just the beginning, but now they had something more to fight for. A future where humans and Sakari could truly come together. Together. The battle was just the beginning, but now they had something more to fight for. A future where humans and Sakari could truly coexist. As they emerged from the dense jungle, Ralph and Petra found themselves thrust back into the chaos of conflict. The joint task force had regrouped, but tension hung thick in the air. Colonel Hawkins and Lyra stood at the center of a heated debate, their voices rising above the din of the surrounding forces. The artifact must be studied by Sakari scientists, Lyra insisted, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with intensity. Its power could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Colonel Hawkins shook his head, his fist tight. This discovery was made by a human. We have every right to analyze it ourselves. Ralph stepped forward, acutely aware of the divide between the two species. His recent experience with Petra had given him a unique perspective, one that bridged the gap between human and Sakari understanding. If I may, he interjected, drawing the attention of both leaders, perhaps there's a way we can work together on this. The artifact clearly has significance for both our peoples. Lyra's alien eyes narrowed, studying Ralph with newfound interest. You speak as if you understand our ways, human. Before Ralph could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. Petra stumbled, her skin rippling with intense patterns of light. The surrounding Sakari gasped, backing away as if witnessing something forbidden. Petra? Ralph moved to her side, concern etched on his features. What's wrong? She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. I don't know. Something's changing. Dr. Elena Martinez, a human xenobiologist attached to the task force, pushed through the crowd. Let me take a look, she said, her voice calm but urgent. As Dr. Martinez began her examination, using a portable scanner to analyze Petra's vital signs, the captured Zorn watched from nearby. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, his mind racing with the implications. Incredible, Dr. Martinez muttered, her eyes glued to the scanner's readout. Her DNA, it's mutating, incorporating human genetic markers. The news spread through the ranks like wildfire. Humans and Sakari alike murmured in disbelief, the implications of this discovery, sending shockwaves through both factions. Zorn, seizing the moment of distraction, broke free from his restraints. With lightning speed, he fought his way through the surprised guards, making a beeline for a nearby Sakari communication device. Ralph spotted the escape and gave chase, his muscles burning as he pursued Zorn through the dense foliage. They burst into a clearing where a hidden Sakari ship sat, its sleek form a stark contrast to the lush jungle surroundings. Zorn reached the ship first, his hands flying over the control panel. The engines roared to life as Ralph closed the distance. With a desperate leap, Ralph managed to grab onto the ship's hull as it began to lift off. Inside the ship, Zorn's eyes widened in surprise as Ralph pulled himself through the airlock. The two men circled each other, the confined space of the ship's interior, leaving little room for maneuvering. You don't understand what you're interfering with? Zorn snarled, lunging at Ralph. Ralph ducked under the attack, years of military training kicking in. Maybe not, he grunted, countering with a swift jab to Zorn's midsection. But I know enough to stop you. As the ship ascended into the planet's atmosphere, Ralph and Zorn grappled fiercely. The vessel lurched and spun, its automated systems struggling to compensate for the battle raging within. Back on the surface, Petra's condition continued to evolve rapidly. Her strength increased exponentially, and she began to display abilities that left both humans and Sakari in awe. Lyra watched with growing concern, her loyalties torn between her duty to Sakari society and the unprecedented possibilities before her. "We must contain her," she declared, her voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "For her own safety and ours." Colonel Hawkins hesitated, his eyes meeting Petra's across the clearing. He saw the fear and confusion in her gaze, but also a fierce perseverance. With a heavy heart, he nodded his agreement. As Sakari guards moved to secure Petra, the artifact in Colonel Hawkins's possession suddenly sprang to life. A brilliant holographic map filled the air, revealing a hidden Sakari base on one of Nexus 7's moons. "What is this?" Lyra gasped, her composure slipping as she stared at the unfamiliar installation. Before anyone could respond, Petra broke free from the approaching guards. Her newfound strength sent them flying, but instead of fleeing, she approached Colonel Hawkins and Lyra. "I think I know what that is," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "And I believe I can help us all understand it." High above the planet's surface, Ralph finally gained the upper hand in his struggle with Zorn. As he secured the Sakari warrior, he noticed the ship's preset course, a direct line to the newly revealed moon base. Ralph's mind raced as he weighed his options. With a deep breath, he made his decision. He would allow the ship to continue its journey, using this unexpected turn of events to gather crucial intelligence. Activating the ship's communication system, Ralph sent a message to Colonel Hawkins, explaining his situation and the base's location. As the ship hurtled towards its destination, Ralph couldn't help but wonder what revelations awaited him, and what role Petra would play in the unfolding drama that would determine the future of human-Sakari relations. As the ship hurtled towards its destination, Ralph couldn't help but wonder what revelations awaited him, and what role Petra would play in the unfolding drama that would determine the future of human-Sakari relations. Back on Nexus 7, the Joint Task Force buzzed with activity as they prepared for the crucial mission to the hidden Sakari moon base. Colonel Hawkins and Lyra stood side by side, reviewing holographic maps and strategizing their approach. At the center of it all was Petra, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow as she pored over Sakari schematics. "The base's outer defenses are formidable," Petra explained, her voice carrying a new resonance that commanded attention. "But I believe I can create a weakness in their energy shield here." She pointed to a section of the holographic display, her finger leaving a trail of bioluminescent light in its wake. Dr. Elena Martinez approached, her eyes wide with fascination as she observed Petra's transformation. "Your cellular changes are accelerating at an unprecedented rate," she said, running a handheld scanner over Petra's arm. "Your strength has nearly tripled since our last test." Petra flexed her hand, watching as patterns of light danced across her skin. "I can feel it," she murmured. "It's like I'm tapping into something greater than myself." Colonel Hawkins frowned, his gaze shifting between Petra and the artifact that sat nearby on a makeshift pedestal. "Do you think there's a connection between your changes and that thing?" Before Petra could respond, the artifact pulsed with energy, casting eerie shadows across the command center. Dr. Martinez gasped, her scanner beeping frantically. "The artifact's energy signature. It's resonating with Petra's cellular structure." Lyra stepped forward, her alien features etched with concern. "This is unprecedented. We must proceed with caution." As the team continued their preparations, a flurry of activity erupted near the communications array. A young lieutenant rushed towards Colonel Hawkins, his face pale. "Sir, we've received an urgent message from Earth Command." Hawkins took the datapad, his expression growing grim as he read. Lyra, sensing his unease, moved closer. "What is it, Colonel?" "News of Petra's transformation has leaked," Hawkins said, his voice low. "Earth Command is ordering us to secure her and bring her back for study." He looked up, meeting Petra's eyes across the room. "They're calling it a matter of interstellar security." Petra's skin flashed with patterns of alarm and defiance. "I'm not a lab specimen," she said, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "My place is here, helping bridge our two species." Lyra's gaze darted between Petra and Hawkins, her mind racing. In that moment, she made a decision that would alter the course of human-Sakari relations. "I agree," she said firmly. Petra's unique perspective is vital to our mission. We cannot allow short-sighted politics to derail our chance for true understanding. Hawkins nodded, a hint of relief crossing his features. Agreed. We proceed as planned. Petra stays with us. As the final preparations were made, none of them noticed Zorn slipping away from his guards. The Sicari warrior, his eyes gleaming with fanatical purpose, managed to access a hidden communication device. His fingers flew over the alien controls, sending a coded message to his allies on the moon base. The task force boarded their ships, a mix of human stealth craft and Sicari vessels. As they lifted off from Nexus 7's surface, Petra gasped, her body suddenly racked with tremors. Energy crackled around her, interfering with the ship's systems. "What's happening?" Colonel Hawkins demanded, steadying himself against the sudden turbulence. Dr. Martinez rushed to Petra's side, her scanner whirring. "Her powers are spiking. The energy she's emitting, it's creating some kind of electromagnetic field." As they entered the moon's atmosphere, Petra's face contorted with concentration. "I can feel the base's defenses," she said through gritted teeth. I think I can disrupt them." True to her word, the task force's sensors showed the moon base's energy shield flickering and weakening. Hawkins seized the opportunity, barking orders to the fleet. "All units, prepare for insertion. We have our opening." Inside the moon base, alarms blared as the Sicari defenders scrambled to respond to the unexpected attack. General Vex, a towering Sicari with intricate bioluminescent patterns denoting his high rank, stormed into the control room. "How did they find us?" he roared, his eyes blazing with fury. "And why aren't our defenses holding?" A subordinate officer trembled before him. "Sir, our systems are being disrupted by an unknown energy source, and we received a warning from Agent Zorn on the planet's surface. He claims the humans have some kind of hybrid on their side." Vex's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Hybrid? Impossible." He turned to the rest of his command staff. "Prepare for battle. We cannot allow them to discover the true nature of our work here." As the task force breached the outer defenses, Ralph made his move. Using the chaos of the attack as cover, he slipped out of his hiding place and made his way deeper into the base. His military training kicked in as he navigated the alien corridors, dodging patrols and using the unfamiliar architecture to his advantage. Rounding a corner, Ralph found himself face to face with a group of Sicari scientists fleeing the battle. Their eyes widened in shock at the sight of a human in their midst. Ralph raised his weapon, his voice steady as he addressed them in broken Sicari. "The control room. Where is it?" One of the scientists, his fear overcoming his loyalty, pointed down a nearby corridor. Ralph nodded his thanks and took off at a run, his heart pounding with the knowledge that he was close to uncovering the truth behind the Sicari's secret operations. As he approached the control room, the sounds of battle grew louder. Ralph steeled himself, knowing that whatever lay beyond those doors would change the course of human-Sicari relations forever. With a deep breath, he prepared to confront General Vex and uncover the secrets that could reshape the future of both their species. With a deep breath, he prepared to confront General Vex and uncover the secrets that could reshape the future of both their civilizations. Ralph burst through the control room doors, weapon raised, only to find himself in the middle of a chaotic scene. Petra, Colonel Hawkins, and Lyra had already arrived, facing off against General Vex and his loyal guards. "Ralph!" Petra called out, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that sent shivers down his spine. Before anyone could react further, Petra's body began to glow with an intense pulsating light. The air around her crackled with energy, and suddenly, a shimmering field erupted from her body, separating General Vex from the rest of the group. Seizing the opportunity, Ralph dove for the nearest console. His fingers flew across the alien interface, muscle memory from his time with the neural implant guiding his actions. "Transmitting the neural implant program files now," he announced, his voice tight with concentration. Vex roared in fury, pounding against the energy field. "You fool! You'll destroy everything we've worked for!" As the files uploaded, screens throughout the control room flickered to life, displaying the true nature of the Sicari leadership's deception. The mood in the room shifted palpably as the information spread. Sakari defenders lowering their weapons in shock and disbelief. Colonel Hawkins wasted no time. "Secure the facility," he ordered into his comm unit, "and gather all data related to the neural implant program and hybrid experiments." Dr. Martinez rushed to Petra's side, her handheld scanner whirring frantically. "Her transformation is accelerating," she reported, worry etching her features. "The energy she's emitting is interfering with the base's systems." As if on cue, consoles began to spark and flicker. Alarms blared throughout the facility, adding to the cacophony of confusion. Lyra stepped forward, her alien features set in tenacity. "We need to stabilize her. The medical bay in this facility should be advanced enough to help." Ralph nodded, already moving towards Petra. "I'll help. I know her physiology better than anyone." As they guided Petra towards the medical bay, the base shook violently. Colonel Hawkins' comm unit crackled to life. "Sir, we're under attack. A hidden Sakari faction is attempting to retake the facility." Hawkins cursed under his breath. "Coordinate our defenses. Use both human and cooperative Sakari troops. We can't lose this base." In the medical bay, Ralph and Dr. Martinez worked feverishly to calibrate the alien equipment to Petra's unique biology. Lyra assisted, her knowledge of Sakari technology proving invaluable. Suddenly, the artifact they had brought from Nexus 7 pulsed with energy. A new holographic map filled the air, revealing a network of ancient alien outposts scattered across the galaxy. "Incredible," Lyra breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Their awe was short-lived as another explosion rocked the base. In the confusion, General Vex, who had been momentarily forgotten, broke free from his restraints. He fought his way past the distracted guards and disappeared down a corridor. Ralph noticed Vex's absence first. "He's getting away!" he shouted, already sprinting after the Sakari general. The chase led Ralph through winding corridors and past battles between the Joint Task Force and the attacking Sakari faction. He finally cornered Vex in a hidden hangar containing a sleek prototype Sakari ship. "It's over, Vex," Ralph growled, raising his weapon. The Sakari general sneered. "You understand nothing, human. This is bigger than all of us." Vex lunged at Ralph, his superior Sakari strength nearly overwhelming the human. They grappled fiercely, crashing into equipment and nearby vessels. Ralph's combat training allowed him to hold his own, but Vex's raw power was slowly gaining the upper hand. As Vex pinned Ralph against the hull of the prototype ship, Ralph spotted a loose piece of equipment nearby. With a burst of desperate strength, he grabbed it and swung, catching Vex off guard. The Sakari general stumbled, and Ralph pressed his advantage, finally subduing him. Panting heavily, Ralph secured Vex with restraints from a nearby emergency kit. He activated his comm unit. "This is Ralph. I've captured General Vex in a hidden hangar, requesting backup for prisoner transfer." As he waited for reinforcements, Ralph's thoughts turned to Petra and the others. He could only hope they had managed to stabilize her condition and repel the attack on the base. The revelations of the day deeply affected on his mind. The neural implant program, the hybrid experiments, the ancient alien outposts. He knew that nothing would ever be the same between humans and Sakari again. The sound of approaching footsteps snapped Ralph back to attention. He tightened his grip on his weapon, ready for whatever came next in this new, uncertain future. Universe. The distant sound of approaching footsteps pulled Ralph back to the present moment. He tightened his grip on his weapon, ready to face whatever came next in this uncertain new reality. As Ralph tensed, prepared for potential hostiles, he breathed a sigh of relief when Colonel Hawkins rounded the corner with a team of human and Sakari soldiers. The colonel's eyes widened at the sight of the subdued General Vex. "Good work, Ralph," Hawkins said, nodding approvingly. "Let's get this traitor secured and head back to Nexus 7. We've got a lot of work ahead of us." The journey back to Nexus 7 was tense, filled with furtive glances between human and Sakari crew members. As their ships entered the planet's atmosphere, Ralph's stomach tightened at the sight below. The once peaceful research outpost had transformed into a hive of frenzied activity. Landing on the bustling spaceport, Ralph immediately noticed the increased security presence. Human and Sakari guards patrolled in tandem, their weapons at the ready. The air crackled with an almost palpable tension. Colonel Hawkins wasted no time in establishing a secure compound to house Petra, Ralph, and the artifact. As Ralph helped guide Petra to her new quarters, he couldn't help but notice the way both humans and Sicari alike stared at her, with a mixture of awe and fear. Inside the compound, Dr. Martinez had already set up a makeshift lab. Her eyes lit up as Petra entered, immediately ushering her to a bioscanner. "Your cellular structure is still changing," she muttered, more to herself than to Petra. "The rate of mutation is unlike anything I've ever seen." Ralph watched as Petra's skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns, a visual representation of her inner turmoil. "What does this mean for her?" he asked, unable to keep the concern from his voice. Dr. Martinez looked up, her expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. "It means we're in uncharted territory. Petra's hybrid physiology is evolving, adapting. We may be witnessing the emergence of entirely new abilities." As if on cue, the artifact pulsed with energy, causing the lights in the lab to flicker. Petra gasped, her eyes widening. "I can feel it," she whispered. "It's like it's trying to communicate." Ralph placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, noticing how she leaned into his touch. Before he could offer words of comfort, his comm unit buzzed. Colonel Hawkins's voice crackled through. "Ralph, I need you in the command center. Now." With a reassuring nod to Petra, Ralph made his way through the compound's winding corridors. He found Hawkins hunched over a holographic display, his face etched with concern. "We've got a situation," Hawkins said without preamble. "Your actions on the moon base have earned you a promotion. Congratulations. You're now our primary liaison between human forces and cooperative Sicari." Ralph blinked, taken aback. "Sir, I'm honored, but—" Hawkins cut him off with a wave. "We need someone who understands both sides, Ralph. Your connection with Petra and your experience with Sicari culture make you uniquely qualified." As Ralph processed this information, alarms blared throughout the compound. Hawkins cursed, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. "We've got multiple breaches. Unknown human forces attacking the outer perimeter and— Wait, Sicari signatures approaching from underground?" Ralph's mind raced. "The tunnels," he breathed. "There must be old mining shafts beneath the compound." Hawkins nodded grimly. "Get to Petra and the artifact. Protect them at all costs. I'll coordinate our defenses from here." As Ralph sprinted through the chaos-filled corridors, he could hear the distant sound of weapons fire. He burst into the lab just as a group of Sicari, their bioluminescent patterns unlike any he'd seen before, emerged from a hole in the floor. "We are the Unbound," one of them announced, his eyes fixed on Petra. "We have come for our savior." Petra's skin flashed with alarm, her newly evolved abilities reacting instinctively. A shimmering energy field erupted around her, and the artifact, pushing the Unbound back. Ralph positioned himself between Petra and the newcomers, his weapon raised. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Before the situation could escalate further, the compound shook violently. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness, broken only by the glow of Petra's energy field and the Sicari's bioluminescence. In the eerie half-light, Ralph could see the fear and confusion on everyone's faces. The artifact pulsed rhythmically, its energy synchronizing with the waves emanating from Petra. "Something's happening," Petra gasped, her voice strained. I can hear them. All of them. Humans, Sicari, everyone on Nexus 7. Ralph watched in awe as Petra's eyes began to glow, her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of the room. He realized that in this moment of crisis, with technology failing and factions colliding, Petra might be their only hope for peace. As the sounds of battle drew nearer, Ralph made a decision. He turned to the Unbound Sicari, his expression resolute. "If you truly believe in Petra, then help us protect her. We need to get her to a safe location where she can use her abilities to reach everyone on the planet." The leader of the Unbound hesitated for a moment before nodding. "We will assist you, human, for the sake of our savior and the future of both our peoples." With unlikely allies at his side and Petra's newfound powers growing by the second, Ralph prepared to navigate the chaos engulfing Nexus 7. The fate of human-Sakari relations hung in the balance, and he knew the next few hours would shape the destiny of both species for generations to come. Ralph's heart raced as he assessed the situation. The Unbound Sakari, now tentative allies, formed a protective circle around Petra and the artifact. The sounds of battle echoed through the compound, growing closer by the second. "We need to move," Ralph said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Petra, can you maintain that energy field while we relocate?" Petra nodded, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "I think so. But where are we going?" Ralph's mind raced through the compound's layout. The central atrium, it's the highest point in the facility, and has a direct line to the communication arrays. If we're going to broadcast a message, that's our best shot. As they made their way through the winding corridors, Ralph couldn't help but marvel at the sight of humans and Sakari working together. The Unbound, with their unique bioluminescent patterns, cleared the path ahead, while Ralph and Dr. Martinez supported Petra between them. Suddenly, the artifact pulsed with renewed energy, its glow intensifying. Petra gasped, her steps faltering. "Something's happening," she whispered, her voice tinged with awe and a hint of fear. The artifact's energy surged outward, enveloping their group in a shimmering field. Ralph felt a tingling sensation across his skin, and he watched in amazement as the field expanded, pushing back the chaos around them. As they reached the atrium, Ralph's comm unit crackled to life. Colonel Hawkins's voice came through, strained but determined. "Ralph, what's your status? We've got multiple hostile forces converging on your position." "We're in the atrium, sir," Ralph replied, scanning the expansive room for potential threats. "Petra's about to attempt a broadcast. We could use some cover." "Understood," Hawkins responded. "I'm redirecting our remaining forces to your location. Hold tight." Ralph turned to Petra, who was now standing at the center of the room, her eyes closed in concentration. The artifact hovered beside her, pulsing in sync with the waves of energy emanating from her body. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Petra opened her eyes, meeting Ralph's gaze with a mix of purpose and vulnerability. "I think so, but I've never done anything like this before. What if it doesn't work?" Ralph placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, feeling the energy coursing through her. "You can do this, Petra. Just speak from your heart. Show them what you've shown me, the potential for unity, for understanding." As Petra nodded and closed her eyes once more, Ralph felt a strange sensation wash over him. The tingling in his skin intensified, and he looked down to see faint, bioluminescent patterns beginning to form on his arms. Before he could process this development, Petra's consciousness expanded outward. Ralph felt a gentle pressure in his mind as her thoughts touched his, and then suddenly, he was aware of every sentient being on Nexus 7. Through Petra's enhanced abilities, Ralph experienced a kaleidoscope of emotions and memories. He felt the fear and anger of the human soldiers, the confusion and hope of the Sakari civilians, the grit of both species leaders, and underlying it all, a shared desire for peace and understanding. Petra's message flowed through the psychic link, a tapestry of images and emotions rather than words. She showed the true nature of the neural implant program, the secret hybrid experiments, and the manipulations on both sides. But more than that, she offered a vision of what could be, humans and Sakari working together, unlocking the secrets of the universe. As the broadcast continued, Ralph became aware of a commotion at the atrium's entrance. Commander Blake and a squad of Terran Purity Front soldiers burst in, weapons raised. "Stop this abomination!" Blake shouted, his face contorted with rage and fear. Ralph moved to intercept them, but before he could take a step, the artifact's energy field pulsed outward. The front's weapons sputtered and died, leaving them defenseless and bewildered. In that moment of confusion, Ralph felt a surge of power course through his body. His muscles tensed and relaxed, growing stronger by the second. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin brightened, forming intricate designs that mirrored Petra's. As his transformation progressed, Ralph became aware of a new presence in his mind, the artifact itself. Instinctively, he reached out to it, and a flood of information poured into his consciousness. Images of an ancient, long-extinct species filled his mind. The precursors, creators of the artifact, and the vast network of outposts scattered across the galaxy. Ralph saw their rise, their achievements, and ultimately, their fall. But more importantly, he understood their final message, a blueprint for unity among diverse species, a path to unlocking the true potential of sentient life. As Petra's broadcast reached its climax, Ralph turned to face the assembled humans and Sakari. His voice, now carrying the weight of ages, rang out through the atrium. "We stand at a crossroads," he began, his words echoing both audibly and through the psychic link. "The path ahead is not easy, but it offers us a chance at something greater than we could ever achieve alone." Ralph gestured to the artifact, still pulsing with energy. This device, left behind by a species long gone, was meant to bring us together, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals, partners in the greatest journey our kind has ever undertaken. As he spoke, the energy field around them continued to expand, now encompassing the entire compound and beyond. Through their shared link, Ralph and Petra could feel the shift in the hearts and minds of those touched by their message. The Unbound Sakari, once driven by blind worship, now looked to Petra with understanding and respect. Many of Blake's followers, their eyes open to new possibilities, lowered their weapons. Colonel Hawkins's voice came through the comm once more, filled with awe. "Ralph, Petra, you need to see this. The artifact's energy. It's affecting the whole planet. The storms are clearing, and we're detecting massive plant growth in areas we thought were barren." As Ralph and Petra exchanged a look of wonder, a new alert sounded. "Multiple ships detected entering the system," Hawkins reported, "both human and Sakari fleets." Ralph took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He reached out and took Petra's hand, their hybrid physiologies resonating in perfect harmony. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice carrying the promise of a new era. "Together, we'll face whatever comes next." As the assembled forces watched in awe, Ralph and Petra stepped forward, their bodies shimmering with the combined energy of two species and the ancient artifact. The future of Nexus 7, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance as they prepared to greet the incoming fleets and forge a new path forward. As Ralph and Petra stood hand in hand, their bodies shimmering with the combined energy of two species and the ancient artifact, the true scope of their transformation began to unfold. The energy field that had enveloped the compound now pulsed outward, spreading across the surface of Nexus 7 like a wave of light. Ralph gasped as he felt a surge of information flood his mind. Through their connection with the artifact, he and Petra could sense the dormant ecosystem of the planet awakening. Barren plains erupted with vegetation, and long dry riverbeds filled with crystal-clear water. "It's incredible," Petra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "We're not just changing ourselves. We're changing the entire planet." Colonel Hawkins's voice crackled over the comm once more. "Ralph, Petra, we're detecting massive ecological changes across Nexus 7. It's like the planet is coming alive." As the assembled humans and Sakari watched in awe, holographic displays flickered to life around them, showing real-time images of the planet's transformation. Deserts bloomed into lush forests, and barren mountains became covered with verdant growth. Dr. Elena Martinez pushed her way through the crowd, her face a mixture of excitement and scientific curiosity. "This is unprecedented," she exclaimed, furiously tapping notes into her datapad. "The rate of terraforming is off the charts. We need to study this immediately." Ralph nodded, still processing the flood of information from the artifact. "Dr. Martinez, I think you'll have plenty to study. The artifact, it's unlocking functions we never knew existed. This is just the beginning." As the initial shock wore off, the atrium buzzed with activity. Human and Sakari scientists huddled together, comparing notes and theories about the planet's rapid transformation. Even former adversaries found themselves working side by side, united by their shared curiosity and wonder. Colonel Hawkins approached Ralph and Petra, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "You two have certainly shaken things up," he said, his voice low. "Earth Command is going to want answers, and I'm not sure what to tell them." Petra's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with drive. Tell them the truth, Colonel. Nexus 7 is no longer just a strategic outpost. It's becoming a symbol of what humans and Sakari can achieve together. Ralph nodded in agreement, feeling a surge of optimism. This could be the fresh start both our species need. A joint colony built on cooperation and shared discovery. Hawkins considered this for a moment, then nodded. I'll make the recommendation, but be prepared for scrutiny from both sides. Not everyone will be as open to change as we are. As if on cue, a commotion erupted near the entrance to the atrium. A group of Sakari, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with agitation, pushed their way through the crowd. At their head was Kael, a respected Sakari elder, known for his traditionalist views. "What have you done?" Kael demanded, his eyes fixed on Petra with a mixture of horror and disgust. "You've polluted our species with human DNA. This abomination cannot be allowed to spread." Before Ralph could respond, a sharp pain lanced through his head. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. Petra reached out to steady him, concern evident in her glowing eyes. "Ralph? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. He shook his head, trying to clear the fog that had suddenly descended over his thoughts. "I'm not sure. It's like there's too much information, too many connections." Dr. Martinez was at their side in an instant, her medical scanner whirring. "Your neural activity is off the charts," she muttered, frowning at the readings. "We need to get you both to the medical bay for a full workup." As they made their way out of the atrium, Ralph could feel the eyes of both humans and Sakari upon them. Some looked on with hope and wonder, others with fear and suspicion. He realized that their transformation had set in motion changes far beyond what anyone could have predicted. In the medical bay, Dr. Martinez ran a battery of tests on Ralph and Petra. The hybrid couple sat side by side, their hands intertwined, as holographic displays showed the complex interplay of human and Sakari DNA in their systems. "Fascinating," Dr. Martinez murmured, her eyes darting between the displays. "Your physiologies are stabilizing, but the rate of change is unprecedented. And these energy readings, they're like nothing I've ever seen." Ralph winced as another wave of information washed over him. "Doctor, is there anything you can do to, I don't know, dampen the input? It's becoming overwhelming." Before Dr. Martinez could respond, an alert sounded throughout the compound. Colonel Hawkins's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. "Attention all personnel. We've detected multiple ships entering the system. Both human and Sakari fleets are on approach. All department heads report to the command center immediately." Ralph and Petra exchanged a look of concern. The arrival of the fleets could either solidify the newfound cooperation on Nexus 7 or plunge them back into conflict. As they rose to join the others in the command center, Ralph felt a newfound persistence coursing through him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that he and Petra, along with their allies, would face them together. The future of Nexus 7, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance as they prepared to greet the incoming fleets and forge a new path for both species. As Ralph and Petra stood in the command center, their hybrid bodies still adjusting to the influx of information from the artifact, they felt a sudden surge of clarity. The arrival of the human and Sakari fleets wasn't just a potential threat. It was an opportunity to showcase the transformation taking place on Nexus 7. Ralph turned to Petra, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with intensity. "We need to do more," he said, his voice low but filled with conviction. "The artifact, I think it's calling to us." Petra nodded, her eyes reflecting the same commitment. "I feel it too. There's so much more we haven't tapped into yet." Without a word, they moved in unison towards the door. Colonel Hawkins stepped in front of them, his brow furrowed with concern. "Where do you think you're going? We need you here to help negotiate with the incoming fleets." Ralph placed a hand on Hawkins's shoulder, his touch conveying a sense of calm. "Trust us, Colonel. What we're about to do could change everything." As they made their way through the corridors, the compound buzzed with activity. Scientists rushed to analyze data from the planet's transformation, while security personnel prepared for potential conflict. Through it all, Ralph and Petra moved with purpose, their hybrid physiology allowing them to navigate the chaos with ease. They reached the artifact chamber, its ancient walls thrumming with energy. The massive structure at its center pulsed with an otherworldly light, seeming to beckon them forward. Dr. Martinez, who had followed them from the medical bay, grabbed Ralph's arm. "This is madness," she hissed, her eyes wide with worry. "We have no idea what further exposure to the artifact could do to your bodies. The risk is too great." Petra turned to the doctor, her expression serene despite the gravity of the situation. "The risk of doing nothing is far greater, Elena. We have to try." Before anyone could stop them, Ralph and Petra stepped into the artifact's energy field. The world around them seemed to blur and shift, replaced by a kaleidoscope of images and sensations. They found themselves floating in a vast starlit void. Before them, a shimmering figure coalesced, a being of pure energy, its form vaguely humanoid but utterly alien. "Welcome, children of two worlds," the being spoke, its voice resonating in their minds. "We are the last echo of the precursors. We have waited eons for one such as you to arise." Images flashed through their shared consciousness, the rise and fall of the precursor civilization, their technological marvels, and their final, desperate attempt to preserve their legacy. "Our time had passed," the precursor explained, "but we saw the potential for greatness in the younger races. We created the artifacts to guide you, to help you avoid our mistakes and reach for the stars together." Ralph and Petra absorbed the knowledge, their hybrid minds expanding to encompass millennia of history and scientific advancement. They saw the true purpose of the artifact network, not just to transform worlds, but to transform civilizations. As the vision faded, they found themselves back in the artifact chamber, but something had changed. They could feel the pulse of the precursor network stretching across the galaxy, connecting them to every artifact site. Without hesitation, they reached out through this connection. Their consciousness expanded, projecting across vast distances. In that moment, they appeared simultaneously at every human and Sakari colony, their forms shimmering with energy. "People of Earth and Sakari," they spoke as one, their voices echoing across countless worlds. "We stand at a crossroads. The path of conflict leads only to destruction, but together, we can forge a future brighter than either of our races could achieve alone." As they delivered their message of unity, chaos erupted outside the compound. Kael's Sakari purists and Victoria Blackwood's human extremists launched their coordinated attack on Nexus 7, their ships descending from orbit in a deadly formation. Colonel Hawkins's voice crackled over the comm system. "All personnel, battle stations, this is not a drill. Engage defensive protocols immediately." The joint human Sakari security forces sprang into action, their training and newfound cooperation evident as they repelled the initial assault. Energy weapons flashed across the sky, and the ground shook with the impact of explosions. As the battle raged, a new signal appeared on the compound's sensors. A massive ship, unlike any human or Sakari design, dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the edge of the system. "Unknown vessel approaching," a sensor operator called out. It's hailing us." A holographic display flickered to life in the command center, revealing a diverse group of alien beings. Their spokesperson, a tall, ethereal creature with iridescent skin, addressed the stunned humans and Sakari. "Greetings, people of Nexus 7. We are the Galactic Conquered, a coalition of spacefaring races who have been observing your conflict. We come in peace, offering our assistance in this time of crisis." Ralph and Petra, their consciousness still linked to the precursor network, seized this moment. Using the artifact's power, they created a massive holographic display visible to all combatants. The image of the Concorde ship, along with representations of countless alien worlds and civilizations, filled the skies above Nexus 7. The effect was immediate. Many of the attacking ships hesitated, their crews awestruck by the display. The possibility of a larger galactic community, of endless new horizons to explore, gave many pause. Capitalizing on this moment of uncertainty, Ralph and Petra enacted their most daring plan yet. Through the artifact, they initiated a temporary mental link between all combatants, allowing everyone to experience each other's thoughts and emotions. The result was staggering. Waves of empathy washed over the battlefield as humans and Sakari alike experienced the fears, hopes, and dreams of those they had considered enemies. Many extremists found themselves unable to continue fighting, laying down their arms as they grappled with this newfound understanding. However, Kyle and Victoria remained unmoved. Their ships, filled with weapons, broke through the compound's outer defenses and headed straight for the artifact chamber. "We have to stop them," Ralph said, his voice strained from the effort of maintaining the mental link. Petra nodded, her bioluminescent patterns flaring with tenacity. Together, one last time. As Kale and Victoria burst into the chamber, weapons raised, Ralph and Petra channeled the full power of the artifact. A blinding burst of energy engulfed the two extremist leaders, forcibly connecting their minds to the shared consciousness. The effect was instantaneous. Kyle and Victoria collapsed to the ground, their bodies racked with sobs as years of hatred and fear were washed away by the undeniable reality of their shared humanity and Sakari nature. As the energy subsided, Ralph and Petra stood at the center of the chamber, their bodies beginning to merge at a cellular level. The strain of channeling the artifact's power had accelerated their hybrid transformation beyond anything they had experienced before. They looked at each other, a lifetime of understanding passing between them in a single glance. They knew what they had to do. "Colonel Hawkins," Ralph called out, his voice echoing with newfound power. "The artifact needs guardians. We're the only ones who can stabilize it and secure lasting peace." Petra turned to Dr. Martinez and Lyra, who had rushed into the chamber. "Don't mourn for us. This is our choice, our destiny." Hand in hand, Ralph and Petra stepped towards the pulsing core of the artifact. As they approached, their bodies began to dissolve into pure energy, merging with the ancient precursor technology. A wave of radiant energy burst forth from the artifact, washing over Nexus 7 and beyond. The planet's transformation accelerated, turning the once barren world into a verdant paradise in a matter of moments. In orbit, the assembled human, Sakari, and Concord ships watched in awe as the energy wave expanded outward, reactivating dormant precursor sites across the galaxy and ushering in a new era of exploration and advancement. Back in the artifact chamber, a holographic image of Ralph and Petra materialized. Their forms were translucent, pulsing with the same energy that now coursed through the planet. "We're still here," Ralph's voice echoed, filled with warmth and reassurance. Petra's image nodded, her smile radiant. "Our physical forms are gone, but our essences live on within the precursor network. We'll continue to guide and protect both humans and Sakari as they take their first steps into a larger galactic community." As the implications of this transformation began to sink in, Colonel Hawkins stepped forward, his expression a mixture of awe and perseverance. "Well," he said, straightening his uniform, "it looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us, a new era of cooperation to build, a galaxy to explore." Dr. Martinez nodded, already tapping notes into her datapad. "The scientific implications alone are staggering. We'll need to establish new research protocols, collaborative teams." Lyra, her eyes shining with unshed tears, placed a hand on the artifact's surface. "We won't let your sacrifice be in vain," she promised softly. As the group began to discuss the immediate steps needed to secure peace and establish the new Human-Sakari alliance, the holographic images of Ralph and Petra watched with pride. Their journey had come full circle, from strangers thrust into an interstellar conflict to the very embodiment of unity between their peoples. The artifact pulsed with renewed energy, its light casting long shadows in the chamber. Outside, the skies of Nexus 7 shimmered with an ethereal aurora, a visible reminder of the incredible transformation that had taken place. As night fell on this new world, the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before, promising a future filled with endless possibilities for the united human and Sakari races.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.